broadcast with DavChat, which is me, Davina. Oh, wow, it froze already. Let's see. Hi. So what I'm looking at is Twitter, where there's a headline shared from The Economist that notes American business should not empower a criminal, and what rational CEO would want a capricious strongman in the White House. Very true, very important. Strong economies are built on a foundation of stability, and businesses can only operate in an environment of stability when there is a functional legal system, the kind of legal system that prosecutes those who engage in financial fraud. So that's just an important point for CEOs, because it can be a short-term gratification position to say, yeah, sure, less taxes, less regulations, more subsidies for businesses. And when I say businesses, businesses that are in current good favor with a despot, because Trump styles himself as a despot. He makes despotic promises that are outside of the rule of law. It's not okay to solicit campaign donations that are outside of the legal limits of campaign finance laws and say, give me $1 billion and I promise I'll end all of the regulations on the oil and gas sector. As well as being very irresponsible from a position of stewardship for current generations and future generations who do need a stabilized climate that's not having a blanket of carbon emission layers in the atmosphere that trap heat to the extent that we trigger certain tipping points in climate factors and cause exponentially greater warming and have consequent problems with agriculture, livability for human habitation, because of a warmer atmosphere being more conducive to hurricanes, tornadoes, as well as even earthquakes because of different pressures on the tectonic plates. So, look, I don't claim to be an expert on the subject of climate science, but what I do claim to be is a concerned human being, and we all have the responsibility of taking an interest in matters relating to the climate crisis and noting that the kind of corrupt people who have habitually demonstrated their willingness to sell out the interests of the people in favor of retaining their hold on power and retaining their access to wealth and influence, those people are not to be trusted with decision-making for the common good. And that was super evident during the pandemic when Trump was looking at the actions of the Chinese government with extremely rose-colored glasses in order to curry favor with President Xi at the time to obtain a Chinese signature on a trade deal that he hoped to be able to announce to the United States, to detract from the numbers coming out showing a manufacturing recession towards the end of 2016, arising from the artificially instigated, or Trump-instigated, tariff war between America and its various trading partners such as China, Mexico, Canada, etc. Trump caused significant harm to the agricultural sector and was able to placate some of particularly the bigger farmers, through dispersing $28 billion worth of taxpayer-funded subsidies. And he would point to the tariffs and say, well, look, that's where I got the money from to pay that $28 billion from the tariffs. But those tariffs are charged to American businesses that import goods from China. Those tariffs are paid by American businesses and are therefore constitute an unofficial tax on the American public that buys consumer goods that contain imported components from China. And that's a lot of consumer goods and consumer items. So, all right, one really important thing. I've said I'll talk about Dolly Parton because the Federalist newspaper, right-wing newspaper, attacked her and said that her philosophy is destructive. I haven't even read the article. I'm not going to give the Federalist a click. I'm just going to point out it's very recent news that Dolly Parton is going to pay for any college education pursued by employees of Dollywood, whereby even seasonal employees, part-time employees, as well as full-time employees of Dollywood, of Dolly Parton's, are going to have not only their tuition but their textbook costs paid for as well. Textbooks, fees, and tuition, which is an amazing thing to do. And the managers of Dollywood have said that it is to help promote Dolly Parton's values of learning and contributing. So that's really great. It highlights that higher education is a community service as well as being an individual achievement, because people who undertake higher educations and learn skills, whether they be in the realm of critical thinking, data analysis skills, professional skills such as becoming a health professional, an education professional, those skills give back to the community. When you develop yourself, even though, yes, it will enrich your own earning potential, etc., it is a net gain for the community to have more educated people in that community. And that's counter to the right-wing perspective that education is a net detriment to societies. Those people are typically part of a coalition of religious fanatics and anti-tax fanatics. So the kind of theoretically just overly rationalized selfishness that has people saying, oh, actually, we think it's economically sound to not pay taxes. It's not economically sound. Billionaires and millionaires exist because of the worth of the scaffolding that predates their activities. So sure, when they innovate, when they push forward, they're contributing to their own success, but their success doesn't exist in a vacuum. Their success exists in a society where immigration has been encouraged, encouraging economies to grow, as communities grow, as standards are raised because of the influx of migrant energy and migrant ambition. In fact, there's a lot of studies that if you're a Trumpy type person, and even if you're just a fence sitter or someone who categorizes themselves as an independent, don't just swallow the overly prevalent negativity towards immigrants to the United States. That is the engine of American prosperity currently. The initial engine was the immoral engine of extraordinary wealth leading to geopolitical significance for the United States through the exploitation of the stolen labor of enslaved people. But then, at least once a war had been fought to end that practice and to stop the South from seceding from the Union out of a benighted commitment to continuing and extending that practice, and those industries that benefited, whether directly or indirectly, from the practice of stealing labor and stealing lives. The South wasn't actually doing that well. I mean, the North was industrializing, and you were forced to participate in the Southern Army if you had less than 20 slaves. So if you had more than 20 slaves, you're exempt. Everything's great for you. You don't have to fight in the war to perpetuate your economic self-interest. You've managed to persuade enough people that it's compulsory, but that's a good thing because the South is being persecuted. Now we have the rise of the neo-Confederates, the deceitful neo-Confederates who pretend they're not racist, who pretend they're not overly attached to these archaic hierarchies of white people have God's blessing to rule over and steal from those people of black skin. It's an immoral attitude. It's got long shadows. It's got a lot of persistence, even if the nature of the outward racism may have diminished. Some of it's just gone undercover. Some of it's just gone under a hood. And some of it persists in also hierarchies against women, suggesting that they should be compelled to give birth, to proceed with a pregnancy, even if that's not their own preference, even if they have a disease diagnosis that would require them to complete a course of chemotherapy? No, says many of the new laws passed in Republican-led states since the overturning of Roe v. Wade in favor of the new Dobbs decision that says states' rights. It's very reminiscent of what was said to justify seceding from the North and the whole impetus of the Civil War, saying, oh no, we should be allowed to do what we want, states' rights. We want to complicate women's medical care, states' rights. We want to imply that, well, if you didn't want that pregnancy, then you, the woman, should have changed your behavior. The implication being that women are vessels for children without legal agency over their own health and their own futures, financial and emotional futures. Because, of course, a lot of pregnant women in domestic violence relationships are more likely to be killed when pregnant. So if they can't end a pregnancy, then those people are leaning into that type of legislature and even suing ex-girlfriends and ex-wives for pursuing a pregnancy termination. Whew. All right, let's listen to Steve Bannon, because he was pretty open on tapes prior to the 2020 election about the plans for just causing chaos, insisting that Trump had won the election regardless of the outcome. This was the plan before the election even happened in 2020. I don't know how many people know this, but it was the plan all along, and you can hear it out of Steve Bannon's mouth. He was secretly taped talking to some Chinese donors at the time.
And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. But that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner.
He's going to say.
We did win this election.
The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs voted mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage. That's our strategy. He's going to try himself a winner. So when you wake up Wednesday morning, it's going to be a firestorm.
Because we're going to go in the night of, as soon as that election's over, we're going in with our lawyers.
We're going to have Antifa crazy, the media crazy, the courts are crazy, and Trump's going to be sitting there mocking, tweeting shit out.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Just understand this. All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. It's going to be moving. It's going to be quick. This is not a day for fantasy. This is a day for maniacal focus. Focus, focus, focus. We're coming in right over the target, okay? Exactly. This is the point of attack we always want.
It's going to happen like you think it's going to happen, okay? It's going to be quite extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in. You have made this happen, and tomorrow it's game day.
So Donald Trump chose January 6th because he knew the Congress would be meeting in the Capitol.
It's pretty clear that what they wanted was to stop the certification of the election.
And we're going to have to fight much harder. We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Yeah, he has to report to jail soon. Is it July? And he'll be in jail July, August, September, October. Yeah, that's a good time.
It looks strikingly similar to the January.
Oh yes, he was part of inciting
insurrection at the U.S. Capitol.
An insurrection in Brazil.
The circumstances that led up to this chaos quite similar as well.
Yeah, so there's Bannon repeating that process of like The Secret. You know, The Secret is a ludicrous ideology of saying you want something to happen, just put it out into the universe and say it into being. Manifest a Trump election victory. Manifest a Bolsonaro election victory. Oh, I should have brought some water over. Dang. All right. I'm noting that Republicans are today circulating a deceptively edited video to make it look like Biden sat down. Well, they're saying he pooped his pants. He just
Distinguished
was
guests,
like, is it time to sit
please
down yet?
welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin III.
There you go. That's the
Secretary
full
of
video.
Defense
He's
of
just,
the United
and
States
sit down
of
yet? I
America.
sit down yet? Yes. Okay. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And the place where Republicans are MAGA
Distinguished
cutting it off
guests,
is just,
please welcome
is
the
there.
Honorable Lloyd
And they're doing
J.
that because,
Austin
of course, it's a worthwhile approach to try and muddy the waters in the context of very credible accusations that Trump wears diapers, that he perhaps took so many stimulants such as Adderall that perhaps he lost some bowel continence or urinary continence because his pants do seem a little padded sometimes. It's speculation, but they're trying to fabricate some speculation of the same type around Biden to then make it seem less novel when people point out that it's actually pretty credible that Trump wears diapers, because show assistants from The Apprentice, Noel Kassler, he's on Twitter and he's been saying for a long time, without being sued by Trump, that Trump is incontinent, is a copious consumer of stimulant drugs, abuse them past the point of time that you can legally be prescribed such drugs, and Noel Kassler's assertions have been backed up more recently by, well, some of them have been by Bill Pruitt, a former producer on The Apprentice, whose 20-year non-disclosure agreement expired recently, and he was able to disclose in an article for Slate magazine that, yes, Trump used the N-word in reference to a candidate for, when it was down to 2 final candidates for the first season of The Apprentice, and Kwame Jackson was a black candidate, and Trump used the N-word in reference to saying that he didn't think America would be ready for such a winner, highlighting Trump's behavior in day-to-day life in that era, in which he stoutly opposed the legitimacy of President Barack Obama and continued to assert without evidence that Barack Obama was not truly an American citizen and that he needed to see his birth certificate. And even once it was produced, there was Melania still saying, well, is it a real birth certificate? Because Melania Trump is a complicit co-conspirator of Trump's. All right, so that was Biden. I've saved some things. I did save this very poignant story of a family. We'll go back to it soon, but first we're going to maybe talk about what George Conway argues here in a clip from the Daily Show. Is that the Daily Show? On Comedy Central. And he's saying that liberals shouldn't get mad in response to the creeping fascism of Trump and the Republican Party as it grovels before him. They should get to mockery, because mockery undermines fascist dictators' claim to be all-powerful and triumphant and malignant. I mean, they want you to be scared. So it's rational to be scared, but you can't lean into that. You also have to make sure you adopt the weapons of resistance, which are humor and willingness to talk, willingness to be strong in your convictions, even as they try and undermine your sense of reality, even as they undermine your convictions about what a democracy is. You'll see so many on the right try and insist America's not a democracy, and that somehow a constitutional republic is not a democracy, because it is a democracy. It's a subset of democracies. It's a representative democracy. So instead of being a little tiny Greek nation state that's so small that every policy issue can be voted on by every single member of that state, you instead have every willing citizen who wants to do so vote in an election. So you have a representative who then is a smaller subset of the population that can vote in a setting such as Congress on policy decisions. So let's hear it from George Conway, whose ex-wife, Kelly Conway, is doing the rounds with her alternate facts, once again insisting that Donald Trump is a hero and that his felony conviction for 34 counts just means that he's even more likely to win, because it's just such a pat on his shoulder to be a convicted felon. All nonsense, but all part and parcel of the fascist grab bag of tricks, which is to disconcert, discombobulate so many people whilst empowering the kind of contrarian people who hate other people so much, who have been so taught to see the world hierarchically that they want to laugh at anyone who says that racism is bad. They want to insist that they are the truly aggrieved people, and they're very empowered by Trump's overturning of norms and defiance of the law and social expectations. That makes him seem more powerful to them, and they want to avail themselves of the same type of confidence-fueled impunity. Break things and then hope that you will fall through the cracks of enforcement, that nobody will have the balls to deliver you consequences for your violations of laws or social norms or societal standards. They want to shelter under Trump's cloak of magical impunity, and the fact that Trump's managed to get 34 felony convictions recently is such a blow to their worldview and their sense of how things should be. They don't just want Trump to be innocent. They want themselves to be always found innocent and assumed to be virtuous, regardless of how they behave.
He's a narcissistic sociopath. He has narcissistic personality disorder, and he has sociopath. And what needs to be done is that needs to be talked about openly. It needs to be pointed out when he is doing things that meet those criteria, and it's got to be pointed out. And it drives him nuts when people do that. And that's the other thing, is what you could do is you can have this cycle where you drive him nuts by saying, he's crazy, he acts nuts. Then you have more video and say, look at how nuts he is.
This was how the Lincoln Project did help Biden's victory, I believe, in 2020, which is that they availed themselves of the techniques they had often used as Republican strategists in their former professional lives, to say they know what appeals to voters, they know how much it can puncture someone's reputation when you make fun of them, and they know specifically of Donald Trump that he's where he is today because he has the confidence of a narcissistic sociopath. And in some forms, confidence can whisk you through the metal detectors so fast people don't even catch you. Confidence, the super stratospherically high confidence levels of a narcissistic sociopath can help you sit with a straight face through The Apprentice and pretend that you're a successful businessman, even when your business has gone into bankruptcy multiple times and you yourself have faced financial ruin a lot and have paid $10 million in fines for violating anti-money laundering legal provisions. All sorts of things can occur to you, and if you're a narcissistic sociopath, you won't have the shame to withdraw from public life as a consequence. You'll just keep committing crimes and marveling at how you get away with it.
And that's what has to be done. The other thing that I would recommend to liberals is don't get mad.
Don't get mad.
The people who support Trump like when liberals get mad. That's why they like Trump. They say, oh, he makes all these people, these snotty liberals mad. It's like, make fun of him. You can make fun of him and mock him, the way, I mean, this is what these shows
you're kind of addressing the whole premise of the show right now.
Right, exactly.
That's all we're trying to do. Yeah, I don't know.
No, you guys, you all play an important role. Kimmel at
That's
the
true.
plays an important
Oh, yes, he said to Trump, isn't it past your jail time? That was awesome. So, of course, Trump tried to attack Kimmel more, but that doesn't matter. Yes, you have to continue doing the right thing, even if it brings vitriol on yourself. And I applaud those people who have continued to shed light on the nature of Trump's crimes and Trump's malfeasance and the malfeasance of the Republican Party as they've lined up behind Trump to defend that behavior, to pretend that it's not contrary to American foundational principles, and to also defend Trump even as he appoints justices to the Supreme Court who roll back protections for women. They not only tolerate him doing that and applaud him doing that, but a lot of them have been part of movements to achieve those goals in making women more susceptible to the depredations of biology. Because pregnancy is a risky enterprise for women that should be entered into voluntarily and not compelled by government legislation. People can die, people can experience health complications, people can hemorrhage so much that they lose their uterus, they lose their fertility for any future pregnancies. These are all consequences that can happen to women, particularly women who are unable to access timely medical care. And all those judgy religious fanatics, or just judgy, just plain old judgy, either men or women who've associated themselves with judgy patriarchal men, who always think everybody else's abortion was just a sign of their poor moral character, but their own abortion that they need to have because of an incomplete miscarriage. They won't admit that a D&C procedure is often referred to as an abortion, and it's the clearing out of remaining tissue when you have a fetus that has passed in your uterus. It needs to be cleared. Otherwise, the woman carrying the fetus can also experience sepsis, can experience uncontrolled hemorrhaging. I smile when I say that, but it's tragic. And we're going to listen to a gentleman soon describe how his wife was turned away from a hospital multiple times because they did tell her they couldn't detect a fetal heartbeat, but they only treated her with one of the drugs necessary to expel the dead fetus from her uterus. They gave her not mifepristone, misoprostol, which induces uterine contractions, but they didn't give her the other one, which stimulates hormonal changes to end the pregnancy, to expel the contents of the pregnancy. It was no longer a live pregnancy, but they were so reluctant to treat her that they just sent her home with what the husband felt was inadequate instructions on how to take the medicine or what to expect. She passed out unconscious, bleeding on the floor of their bathroom, and he had to take their 9-month-old daughter, because this woman's life is not just expendable in the pursuit of Republican goals to try and say all women who fall pregnant and are subject to the will of God, as formalized through our Republican laws that we've passed. They're humans with families that love and want their continued existence. But anyway, so this woman close to death is dressed by her husband, got into the emergency room at the hospital. They're like, thank God you brought her in. And the wife survived. They're both living with the trauma now of how fundamentally they were betrayed by the medical system. And they don't even want to sue them or blame them that much. They feel that the doctors in the whole hospitals were concerned about the legality of a D&C. They didn't want to remove dead fetal tissue from her uterus because it's like, oh, it's still in there. Don't touch it. Like what God put in there, don't take out. Is that what the legislation says? Yeah, well, we don't want to lose our licenses. We don't want to get pursued by a prosecutor. So we can't have any room for that accusation. So you have one of the two drugs needed to expel your dead baby, your dead fetus, and go home and deal with that at home. And it shows the unconscionable burden placed on medical staff whose only thought should be how to best offer medical care to women, how best to stabilize their condition if their health or life is in danger, as well as let them make their own choices about what risks they want to take with their body. Pregnancy is a risk. It's a gamble. Let's listen to the end of George Conway's concluding remarks. I will have to go soon.
Laugh at him. Now, that doesn't mean you don't appreciate the seriousness of what would happen to this country, which is the other message to the rich people who want their taxes cut. Sure. It's like, if this guy's elected president, we're going to have civil disorder like you've never seen. And what that's going to do to the economy is not great. We're going to see capital flow, both human and financial, like you've never.
Yes.
seen from the United States before. And so all of these reasons, I think we're going to be able to explore this between now and November. And I think that's the reason why ultimately I think common sense will prevail and this guy will win. But the problem will still be there will be 50, 60, 70, 80 million people who will vote for the guy. And we still have to live with those people, and we're going to have to deprogram them at some point.
Well, they didn't deprogram those people of Germany who still supported Hitler. It just was a really resounding defeat, and some people just tried to hide from consequences, moved to South American countries if they were in leadership teams, moved to the United States in some cases. Definitely Nazi leadership people tried to leave had survived, tried to leave the country and take on new identities. But not everybody got deprogrammed. There was no mass deprogramming. You just have to hope that at some point people wake up. And everybody's on a bell curve of ability to understand the world and process what's happening, even despite the efforts of Rupert Murdoch and co. to fabulate an alternate reality into existence. Rupert Murdoch just got married for the 5th time to a Russian retired biologist, a woman who's the mother-in-law of one of Putin's favorite oligarchs, Abramovich, I think. I saved it. I'll have a look. But the important thing is just to at least take a little bit of breath in from what George Conway said, that he doesn't think Donald Trump will win because he thinks we'll do the work. We'll have the conversations about how it is destabilizing to an economy if you have a massive brain drain, a human capital and a financial capital drain from the United States if Trump gets in because he's sworn to avenge himself on his enemies. I mean, the Democrats didn't leap to avenge themselves on Donald Trump. They let the legal process roll out. He'd committed a lot of crimes. There was a lot of evidence, but it was a grand jury that signed off on the indictments, and it was a jury of his peers that convicted Donald Trump of 34 felony counts. All right, let's look at Rupert Murdoch married Mrs. Zukova. He met her at a party hosted by one of his ex-wives, Chinese-born entrepreneur Wendy Deng, who was also an ex-girlfriend of Vladimir Putin. So weird that he keeps... Anyway, but Mrs. Zukova was previously married to Russian oil billionaire Alexander Zhukov, while their daughter Dasha, a socialite and businesswoman, was married to the Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich until 2017. So it's not that much of a surprise that Rupert Murdoch meets his new wife at a party hosted by Putin's ex-girlfriend and his own ex-wife, Wendy Deng. Putin and Murdoch have things in common. They both try to exert despotic influence over more than their own nations. They put their influence out beyond their own countries. Putin invades neighboring countries. Rupert Murdoch has installed his know-how, his skill set, which is emotional manipulation on behalf of his preferred political candidates. And he's exercised those skill sets in favor of electing conservative governments in the United States, in the UK, and in Australia. Probably other places as well, but to obvious great effect in those 3 nations. And he knows how to make people feel under attack. He knows how to make people feel intellectually superior and say, oh yes, they keep putting these things in quotation marks, but I can see through the left trying to tell me that. I just remember looking at a paper my dad was reading, and it was published by Rupert Murdoch, and they said a black man committed a robbery. They used quotation marks. And I was like, why are they using quotation marks? And they did that to try and say, they don't want you to know that he was black. They don't want you to know that you're under attack from migrants, from black people, from modern people who want you to be inclusive of gender fluid and sexuality fluid folk. They're a threat to your existence and to the peaceful existence of your children. They want to undermine public schools. Legislation about school vouchers, allowing the diversion of public money designated for educational purposes to leave public schools and to be given to parents who can then use that money to fund a Christian private school education. And that is what the bulk of that school voucher money is now doing. It is funding religious schools using taxpayer money, thus massively impacting the separation of church and state, thus eroding it, collapsing that separation, so that church driven schools that question evolution, that don't tolerate gay students, that are not legally required to open their classrooms to students with learning disabilities or students from minority backgrounds, that are not covered by federal laws governing equity and inclusion, and they can instead be as selective and discriminatory as they like, but now using taxpayer money. So that's that's all from me for the moment. I'm going to leave and talk again soon. Obviously, this is a fake background. My house has a little doll's house over there. It's a little less perfectly tidy and organized. I have 2 children, and I'm not the tidiest person in the world. But a viewer on another occasion said, "Oh, what's in the real background? Too many boxes of wine and cats." And I was like, well, I'm not a drinker and I have no cats. I have no pets, unfortunately. But we hope to have chat. I hope you liked the discussion. Have hard conversations with your friends, family, and social circles.